we will call the meeting to order at what appears to be 1:35.
You.
So a meeting of Bailey High at 1:35, July 2nd. Four of us are present: Gloria Van Hoff, Mike Shorten, John Reinhardt, and Teresa Masches. Is there a movement for the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, moved.
Second.
And Gloria seconds.
Approved.
And yes, all approved. Say aye. Aye. All right, all approved. We don't have any public comment. Are there any members' comments? I thought, given I was recently at a funeral for somebody who spent their last days in a nursing home, that it marked to me the importance of what we're doing here and how lucky we are in the county to have Bailey High. And so I wanted to publicly express my appreciation for Bailey High and all the staff and the care they put into taking care. It's a hard decision for relatives, and they often struggle with are they making the right choices. And so I'm glad that people can feel confident that we are serving them well here.
Coming your way.
All right, Bailey High Administrator report.
Okay, as you guys are aware, we do have a little bit of a COVID outbreak that started last week. Almost all of it is asymptomatic, or what most people would just write off as allergies. But because one employee tested positive, we have to start the surveillance testing process, and it just starts picking up in the dragnet, all the asymptomatic positives. So at the current moment, the staff that were on the front side are starting to come back to work. As we did have 2 new staff members today, so we're still kind of on that early phase of response. We have all of our COVID protocols in place at this time that still align with the CDC guidelines from 2022. Medical director is really not keen on what we're doing, which is great, but he needs to take it out on public health because the guidelines are the guidelines. We can't switch from it, but he's right. The minute you start moving residents, and the way that the federal government wants this done is that if you have 2 people in a room and one person tests positive, you separate them and you put positives together and then observation together. Well, all you're doing is just spreading it around the building with all the moves. And he is like, stop moving people. Well, if we don't, public health gives us an IJ and fines us $20,000. So we're going to be moving people. So you got to get through this first like popcorn part where it all pops up from us shifting everything around, and then it'll stabilize. So by next week, I would imagine things will start winding themselves out. We believe to some degree that there's 2 sources, not one source, meaning the timing of things is really odd and the connections aren't all there to make like a direct link. So it could just be because you had 2 cases come in, and because one implemented or caused the implementation of surveillance, we picked up the other because there was not a direct link between the 2. So just kind of working through it right now. It is impacting staffing a little bit because we do need a little bit more hands on deck while we're in a response, as well as some staff are impacted. So we're kind of just working through it as we speak right now. I would say next week we'll start to see things stabilize. The following week we'll start seeing everybody roll off the clock, so to speak. Health department is aware. We are working with them through this. There's not much, like, they are not recommending we do anything different other than just stay on the path. So it's kind of where we're at. Any questions about that? The big one we get all the time is, why are we still doing some of the things that we're doing after, years have gone by, and it's simply because the regulations have not caught up with current practices. So, which is exactly what I told Dr. Casey yesterday. Like, I get it, I believe you, I trust you, but here's the regulations and why we have to keep doing it the way we're doing.
Yeah, I have one question.
Yep.
Did you say it only takes 1 to generate that now?
Yeah, we have to start surveillance, contact tracing right off the jump.
Right after 1? Mm-hmm. Okay, I thought that had changed in...
Well, that's, what you're talking about is the definition of outbreak.
Right.
The definition of outbreak is 2.
Okay.
But you have to start your contact and surveillance on 1.
I see, okay.
Which, you know it as well as anybody else. 99.9% of the time, if you've got 1, you've got 2.
That's right. Okay,
So-
alrighty. Thank you for clarifying.
Tom, you said this was kind of a strain that's more like a flu or just a cold.
We'd even call it flu.
Just a cough.
Yeah, most people would just say, well, that's, springtime allergies and move on. But, it's that mild case. A lot of people are asymptomatic. You're not even It's just because you
Is
get,
it a false positive, you think, or did you just check?
no, it's asymptomatic positive, and you get
Okay,
caught up in the dragnet,
The
yeah.
viral load is low, then it's gonna come off like that. So that's a good thing, because, you know, the more symptoms you have, the more contagious you are.
So what triggers the testing? Anytime anyone's not feeling well, they automatically get a COVID test?
Well, no, we don't test anyone that doesn't feel well. Now, in this particular employee's case, they said they wanted to be COVID tested because they thought they had COVID, and they were right. And then now it's, okay, so you're in this particular department, and your close contacts are these individuals and these residents. So then that whole dragnet gets pulled in, and they're on now a cycle of testing for a week. If nobody was to test positive in that group, you just continue your surveillance. But you're gonna find one or two, and then all of a sudden now you've got to take it and branch from that person's contacts going outward, and so,
So you can have someone that tests positive, you have to go into surveillance, and you find someone else who also tests positive, but may not even be related to this one.
yep,
And then you have a whole
and that's what happened here.
broader issue.
Yeah, and now you have a whole, okay, so we have a pod and a pod,
Yeah,
and now what timelines are they on? Who have they talked to?
Yeah.
What is the crossover between the two?
right.
Yeah.
So,
The medical director's response to all this is, in big, bold letters, stop testing.
yeah. I mean,
It's not, you're not having really sick people.
yeah, I was gonna say, when was the last outbreak that we had that was caused severe illness or,
It was back in 2020.
okay, so,
Yeah, we've had outbreaks. It feels to me like it's almost every 6 months. We actually had an outbreak just a little bit later into July last year that kicked off, and then in the winter. So it seems like that might be our cycle for whatever reason, a little bit late summer, and then right after or right around the new year.
yeah.
I don't know.
And,
You know, all the residents have been vaccinated, and that recent round we had, we did a clinic 3-4 months ago maybe. So they should still be within that 6-month protective window, but they're not supposed to be vaccinated again till the fall when the new vaccine compositions come
right,
out.
okay. All right, thank you.
I got nothing.
No, I'm curious, because it's like, okay, so these are federal regulations that trigger how this is handled.
Yeah.
So we just have to wait until the federal regulations.
One of two things is gonna happen. There's gonna be a change in administration, which will change the approach to it, or the Chevron Supreme Court ruling will work its way through. And one of the arguments that has been made since the beginning of COVID is that the CDC and CMS did not have the authority to pass down those guidelines the way they did. Well, with the Chevron doctrine going through, that solidifies that, no, they did not have the authority, but now you have to unwind all that. Same with like the staffing mandate. The main argument of the lawsuit against CMS from the National Association was the fact that CMS doesn't have the authority to put a rule like that in place, especially given it would take 102,000 more people just to meet the minimum.
Right.
With the Chevron ruling going through, it changes the lawsuit approach entirely. So, you know, we're just gonna have to wait and see. The only place that has not changed as far as the COVID guidelines is long-term care. Everything else has now been rolled back, amended. Hospitals don't test anymore. They don't follow the same guidelines we do. They're in a completely different subset now. It's just long-term care.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, thoughts, COVID-wise? All right, let's talk about positive stuff. Real quick, just your report that you guys have, because of the timing of this meeting being the second of the month, it only goes through May. I don't have all the June data, so I'm just going to mention that in June, our census did drop down to about an average of 63, 64. We had, in this, everything happens in threes. It's really weird, and it's been like this since I got into the field. So when you have one person pass away, you have 3 people pass away. If you hit 4, now you're going to have 6. It's just, I don't know why that is, but it just is. And we had that happen where we had a big chunk of our hospice residents all pass away right around the same time. At that same time, June and July are typically a slow referral month anyway from the hospitals. And right now the hospital is pretty slow. So we weren't able to keep up with the pace of residents that were discharging versus residents coming in. So the census dropped down a little bit into the low 60s. Now, a couple opportunities you get when you drop into a lower number. We were able to kind of get rid of some overtime, reduce some of the staffing temporarily. We're on the bounce back now. We're back up to 70. We're working our way back up. Referrals have picked up a little bit. In fact, we got a referral today. This is kind of neat for those of you that follow long-term care at all. This is going to be a first for us. We're going to take this resident, so you're blind and deaf, and we're going to do therapy. And this is going to be amazing if we pull this off. There's a book the family has created of hand signals and gestures, like taps in different spots that mean certain things. Like a double tap here is to stand up, a double tap here is to sit down. I think this will be an amazing story when we pull this off. And so we went to our rehab team, we gave them the referral, we're like, can you do this? Like, oh yeah, we can do this. So it's short term, they are planning on going home because they've memorized their home layout, and so this would be an absolute challenge for them from a long-term standpoint, but we're going to give this a shot. I think this will be a neat story when it's all said and done.
I was just thinking, that's a great qualitative study
Yep.
right there.
I mean, at first you're thinking, how are you going to do therapy with someone who can't hear you and can't see you? So all your forms of communication have been taken away. So this will be kind of neat. The way I look at it is it's kind of like a video game, right? You get the code book, the cheat codes, and now you just got to play the game. So we're going to do a testimonial when we're done. So I'll share it with you guys, because I think this is going to be a great success for us. It's going to be neat. Probably only 2 weeks, very, very short term, just enough to get. They've got 14 stairs in their house, and they do this every single day up and down the stairs. So all we got to do is get this lady to be able to go back and manage 14 stairs.
I'd be really interested in knowing if that patient would use voice signals for attention or claps or.
She speaks.
She speaks.
They've always been, the way I
So
understand
she
it,
wasn't always.
always blind, not always deaf.
Oh, okay.
So she can communicate some verbal,
Yeah.
but she can't hear you back, and can't see your lips moving or sign language. So all the communication is done through a series of
Tap or,
taps. Yeah, taps and touch.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah, I know, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
So, but we're on our way back up in regards to the overall census. Staffing has been very stable. We haven't seen a whole lot of in and out, although we're coming up to August, and August is always a little bit of a rough month for us because all our college kids go back. Summertime's great. You have all these kids that come in, they fill up all your shifts, all your long-termers or full-timers get to go and take their vacations, and then we hit about mid-August and everybody starts just disappearing. So one of the things we did differently this year than last year is when we hit the springtime, we really just said, all right, we're only going to bring back our college kids, and we're not going to bring in any new college kids. We're going to look at more long-term targeted people so that we don't keep running into this problem every August. So it's not going to be as bad this year as it was the last couple years, but we're still going to experience a little bit of a bump. Now, good thing is our pay rates are still very attractive to the marketplace. We are not having any problem recruiting right now. We've actually been turning people away because they're not fitting exactly what we have open. So it's actually a good spot to be in. A lot different than when we were sitting in this position a year ago. So that's kind of where we're at. We have an ADON that we're looking to hire, Assistant Director of Nursing. We have 2 candidates that we're giving some serious consideration to. Second interviews are Tuesday and Thursday of next week, because we have the OSHA training on Monday and Wednesday. So we're going to do them next week, and then hopefully have an offer out next week, and then we move into memory care unit director recruitment. Just that fast.
How many do you have doing OSHA training?
4. Myself, Tara, my housekeeping and laundry supervisor, and who's the 4th person that wanted to join us? I can't think of who the 4th person is. So yeah.
Occupational safety, right?
Yeah, that
I know
OSHA
of
10 hour?
that, Right, I always thought that was just for like construction trades and
Nope.
such. It's for
It's
everything.
it's big.
Wow.
Apparently, we could have done it too.
Yeah.
I was told we could have done it too, although I did not
We
take up
have
that
a
offer.
trainer coming in, and I think 25 seats.
We do, but we only have about 12 signed up.
I mean, it's going to be the most invigorating 10 hours of my life, I'm sure. But
Right.
I think it's important that at least 2 people from Valley High go. And I was just thinking myself and the housekeeping and laundry supervisor, but Tara wanted to do it. And I'm not
Yeah,
gonna,
we
you know,
have Tara, Jennifer, is it Bogie?
bogey.
Bogie, and then Michael, your kid.
Oh, dietary, Mike, my chef, our dietary director, yeah. Which makes sense, because all of our OSHA complaints that we've had since the time I've been here have been from the kitchen. Water on the floor, which then they threw that one out. And then we had a complaint in the kitchen back when COVID, right when it first started, about masks and available equipment. And when the OSHA person got here, I brought him down to the storeroom, and if you remember, we were way ahead of that curve, and I just opened the door, they closed the door and walked out. And that was the end of it. I mean, the
I
argument
had the
felt,
same thing.
yeah.
I had the same thing, not lack of PPE equipment, it was all false. It was a disgruntled employee. And
Yep.
so I had an OSHA complaint that I had to answer on the night of our, it wasn't a real gala because of COVID, but it was a virtual. So I had to do this report that took like 4 hours. I got done with it at 2 a.m., but it was like all bogus. And I think sometimes they know that,
They do.
because they
Yep.
look at where it's
I mean, as soon
coming
as
from.
I opened that door, they took one look and they said, "We're finished here," closed their book and walked out. So, I mean, yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of OSHA standards that we have to abide by. The normal construction ones, yes, ladder safety, all that kind of stuff. But we also have an OSHA ETS, which is an emergency temporary standard related to COVID. So we still have that over the top of us.
I don't know why I didn't think of that, because they would be so far reaching into every occupation.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The big one for a long, long time was back injuries and CNAs, and they would just crucify you for that.
Wow, pick it up wrong and whatnot, yeah.
Yep, but now that every facility has got mechanical lifts all over the place and zero lift policies, I mean, really, staff should never be lifting somebody off the floor, manually. Now, am I gonna sit there and tell you that it never happens? No, of course it doesn't. I mean, we have some of the bigger guys,
Yeah.
just move them over, but most of it is all mechanical now.
I can tell you for a fact, nobody's picked me up off the floor, Tim.
I can tell you for a fact, I got 2 CNAs that if I put them on the team, they'll prove you wrong.
Yeah.
So that's the big staffing stuff. Let's talk IDPH real quick. I'm gonna bring you guys up to speed on where we're at with all that. So we have finally closed the cycle, which is the most important thing, because now the clocks are all stopped and all of that. It was a little bit of a weird cat and mouse game between us and the state and timing of everything, but we're through it. So here's what's left outstanding. The state fines have been levied and paid, and it was all of that hullabaloo. They hit us for 1 day, maximum level of 1 day for $2,200, and we were able to take the 35% reduction on that, pay $1,750, and just be done. So all of that for 1 day, that makes no sense at all. But then they're recommending to the CMS, because you get your state version and your federal version, that there should still be a civil monetary penalty, and that there should be what's called a DOPNA, denial of payment for new admissions, and they gave like a 29 or 30-day period. Now the federal government has to decide, do we implement that? Do we just disregard it? Like, what do they do? The funny thing is, with the state only doing the 1 day, it kind of signals to CMS that it's kind of like you don't need to go the full breadth of all of it. So I have absolutely no idea what to expect. I will tell you this, though. So I had one of my business colleagues was in Washington, D.C. at a conference, and well aware of what was going on out here, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be at a session, CMS, one of the heads of CMS is going to be at. Do you want me to run your scenario past them?" Obviously not saying, "Oh, we have a facility in Illinois," and blah, 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 but just give them the scenario. The CMS director's like, "Yeah, that's not an IJ. I don't know where they're going with that." So I'm hoping that that's a signal. I mean, obviously they didn't tie the two together, but at least when they look at it, they're going to look at it with that kind of a lens. So for now, we're just going to kind of wait and see what the next steps are, and I'll let you guys know when we hear. I would have thought this week or next week that we'll hear from CMS as to what they want to do, and then we'll go from there. But as far as open-ended survey items, the cycle, all of that is done. So here's the crazy thing about all of that. Our overall 5-star score went up even though the survey was so rough. So here's why, which this tells you how flawed the system is. So not this past survey, but the survey from a year ago was when we had the one resident who, out of the blue, told the surveyor that she was missing $20. And because we weren't aware of it, the state wrote us for abuse, misappropriation policies and procedures. Even though the lady was given $20, made whole, can't prove that she lost it or any of that. Well, because of the certain tag category, you get an automatic red handprint stop sign on the CMS website, which makes it so that the maximum number of points that you can get in the survey portion of the 5-star system is 2 stars. We should have been at 4 in total when you look at the aggregate points, but because of the stop sign and that crazy scenario. So you go and you have another survey, even though the weight of this survey would bring us down to 3 stars overall, you get rid of the old cycle 2. So we actually go up overall to 5 stars overall. It's just the crazy.
Figure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything starts with your survey score, that's your base, and then you
All
get
karma, Tom.
something like that. It starts with your base survey score, and then if you have 5 stars in staffing, you get a bonus on the overall, and if you have 5 stars in quality, you get a bonus on the overall, taking us back to 5. So despite all of it, we went up. And we'll just roll with it. So those are the big memory care, non-finance stuff, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a second. And then the last thing I'll just throw on your radar, August 24th will be our annual family picnic. You obviously are all welcome to join us. It's a Saturday. We usually do it from noon to 2, noon to 2:30-ish. And we're expecting a big crowd this year, so. Any questions on anything I covered? Cool.
No questions.
All right. All right. Then we are going to talk about the financial report, which tomorrow the Finance Committee has asked for a finance report from us, from our committee, which Tom is going to give tomorrow at
I am.
Finance.
So we're going to test drive it with you guys today, if that's all right.
Absolutely. What page are you gonna start on here?
Well, you have the financial report in your packet, but use this little handy-dandy handout that I sent to you guys.
All right.
And I'm going to kick it over to Pete here in a second to kind of walk through, but this all comes from my understanding, a conversation at Finance Committee last month. In
It
which,
was, yes. I think it's because we did the audit, and the audit showed that there had to be an adjustment made for Valley High, and so that triggered a question in one of the members' minds about, well, how is the finances at Valley High doing? And in particular, how is the memory care project going to affect the overall balance when it's completed? And so although
That's a good summary. I mean, we had the Baker Tilly doing the annual audit. Right? And we're going through all of the funds, and the general fund and the special funds, and we looked at the special funds, we looked at the Valley High Fund. And I think we saw roughly this number in blue, showing a deficit of about 1.7 million, 1.6, which prompts the question, what's going on, how are we doing, is this gonna get worse with the memory care unit? And well, I thought I had the answers, I wanted to be sure.
I also thought I had answers, but I was very cautious to start giving them.
No one was pressing for the answers there, just saying, hey, we ought to have an update on this at the next meeting, and
yeah. And imagine the confusion I got when you guys threw the number at me. And I'm like, no.
yeah. Where there was a little bit of suggestion that Scott could get his financial model out and we could make that part of it, and we're like kind of tapping our brakes because there has been so much flux out here. The financial model needs more attention, and it's not ready for prime time just yet. And Scott and Tom will work on that, but essentially the 1.62 million in blue is accurate on an accounting standpoint, but it's not reflective of where we really are. And that's kind of what this sheet gets to, and Tom, you can take it from there.
All right, so we give you guys 2 different financial reports at the end of the year every year. One of them is the preliminary one, and then one of them is the post-audit one. So if you look on the preliminary one, we showed a net income of $36,891 to the positive. And then Baker Tilly goes in, they make their adjustments, and we then adjusted that down to a loss of $38,779, where the income changed a little bit. But what gets added on at that point going forward is all of the unrealized expenses. Now this year, they're doing, the way the accounting is done a little bit differently. They're looking at all of our investments. If we were to sell them today at the end of the fiscal year, what would that result in? So then all of your penalties, your losses of maturity, all of that, that all gets baked into the cake, and that's that 1.629. That's how you get there. It's all of our unrealized losses, which we will never realize, because we're not going to be breaking those investments early or calling them due at this point. So when you add that in, it does change the financial position of the organization, but it's all non-realized, depreciation, pension expenses, OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, and then this adjustment for the financials.
Are bricks and mortar included in that?
In that depreciation, yes.
Okay,
Bricks, mortar, and then equipment, and don't quote me on the number, but I think it's over like $12,000 or something, 20, that we depreciate that as well. So, larger stuff. But once you add all of that in, that gets you to that huge number, or the 1.6. Now, when you look at where we're at right now, we are operating with a net income of about a loss of about $142,000 for this current fiscal year. Now,
142K.
the $142K in the red.
Or in the yellow in this case.
Well, in the yellow on my sheet, yes. Great point. But that also keeping in mind that we're holding the census at 80, and some of our fixed costs remain in place, whether we're at 120 or at 80. We're going to still be running the washers all day long. It requires the same number of laundry staff, for example. You're not going to reduce your staffing for that. Sure, nursing has come down a little bit, but some of our other fixed costs stay the same. So we knew this year, with having all of those beds offline, that it was going to be a little bit more of a, break even, maybe a little bit of a loss year. And then once we start bringing on the new unit, that income's position changes. Our fixed costs stable back out. We add our staff back in with the income. Now, that's going to lead us to a different discussion for next month. And that is going to be when I bring the resolution to you for adding the staff in for the memory care unit, because we're going to have to put them onto the roster. We're going to have to talk case mix, because we have a really interesting problem. I don't know, opportunity problem, depends on how you look at it. Right now, our Medicaid rate is better than our private pay rate and our Medicare rate by a long shot. So when we talk case mix and I run the numbers, if we were to put 100% Medicaid on that memory care unit, it will bring the Medicaid rate down, because it's a average across the whole house, but it still operates better at a higher revenue than if we filled it with private pay, which is 100% the opposite of what MPA recommended back in 2018.
We entered into it with
Yeah.
exactly different.
So I took their charts and stuff, and I started messing with them with the current rates, and it changes the position by almost $1.5 million right now. So we have a case mix conversation we have to have.
But, and we'll have this discussion next month, but it's like, just because private pay made you the most money when we started this project didn't mean we wanted to do all private pay.
Right.
But just because serving the indigent makes us the most money right now, probably doesn't mean we want to do all indigent.
No, it doesn't.
You know,
But it allows us,
We're always gonna have like a mix that.
we have to have a case mix,
Yeah,
because
So
we have to be,
private pay isn't an indigent, it's somebody with money that wants to come.
that's someone coming with
Okay,
their
it's
cash.
just the opposite of what I would have thought it was, that we're helping somebody that's just.
Or someone well-insured,
Yeah, okay.
so we gotta look at that. And I'm gonna provide you guys, I've been running some modeling, and I'm not ready to show it to you just yet, although I may be ready to show it to you soon. But I think we have two conversations that have to be had. Do we want the case mix to be part of the whole, meaning go back to making the case mix off of 120 plus the 8 swing like we did in the past? Or do we want the case mix to be two separate mixes? One for the, we'll just, for lack of a better term, call general population, and one for the memory care.
What would the financial impact be? I think you have to model that.
I am modeling it both ways. And the crazy thing is, the part I can't figure out yet is how can I determine if, like the X factor, if I fill the entire unit with, which would be considered light acuity, it's going to pull the Medicaid rate for the rest of the house down to that average, right? So if it pulls the whole house down to, let's just say, from 500 to 400, we gotta figure out what that net loss is across the other side of the house too. So those are the two factors. I can't figure out what the drop will be. That's the only thing I have not been able to get my hand on. If I can get that, I can give you numbers as early as tomorrow.
Okay.
But I have to figure the algorithm out.
Yeah. I
So
think you
that's
have
why we
to
get back to, there's a blend conversation we have to have. And then the other piece is, at some point in time, there's a lot of talk about, with the federal government getting rid of, what do they call it? The federal matching funds, the FMAP. So basically what happens is the state of Illinois taxes nursing homes on their beds, then they apply the tax to the federal government then matches it to a portion and sends the money back to the state to fund the Medicaid program. It's like legalized laundering. But the FMAPs are starting to go away. And now the state of Illinois' income is going to be slashed by half of what the Medicaid rate is. So to say that we're always going to be sitting at the Medicaid rate we're at right now is foolish. We know at some point the state's either going to have to come up with a new revenue source, which I don't know where they're going to get, or they're going to have to cut the rates. So saying we're going all in on Medicaid is not smart long-term. It's only smart for the short term. But that doesn't mean that we can't try to take advantage early and then slowly adjust and pivot. So I'd like to have this conversation with you guys with some better numbers in front, but the conversation needs to be, how far do we want to go? Going back to 2018, no, maybe it was 21. We were at 80-20-20 of the case mix, right? 80 Medicaid, 20 Medicare, 20 private, then that allowed the 8 beds to swing whatever direction we wanted to go. We changed that to 70-20-30, meaning 30 Medicare, 70 Medicaid. There was a little bit of an uproar at the county board level about, are we getting away from our mission?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
there was, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is too, because.
But,
No
maybe,
money, no mission.
no money, no mission, but maybe here's a chance that you guys as a committee could go back to 80-20-20 with this rate right now and solve that concern. We're gonna go back to our original stated case mix. I'll have the models and the numbers for you guys, so you can look at that and go, okay, we're talking about a net of X.
You know, and, you know, no money, no mission, I mean, honestly, that's very, very important. You know, of the balance of the 22-426, how much is to become due on your build-out?
I think we're about 2/3 of the way through on the build-out,
Okay,
as far
so
as
1/3
costs coming in.
left of the construction, what is that?
It's a $4 million project,
Okay,
so
so 1.3.
maybe, somewhere in that range.
Well, that's minuscule, and then you have the other expense of the beds and the furnishings, right?
No, that's
That's
in-
part of that
that's all
for it.
part of that number.
So you still have, even at 142 negative operating income, you still have 20 years.
Essentially.
Okay.
And there's
Just
other
if
things,
you're looking at
there's
it
other things that gotta go into that,
Simplistically, of course.
you know,
That's a little bit of an overstatement.
Yeah, of
You have
course,
to have a
but-
fund balance.
yeah,
Yeah.
We can't operate on zeros most months.
I think we're at
Yeah.
8 before we start cutting into what we have established as a group of the do not go below line. So, I mean,
8 million is your do not go below line.
I think we have it set
Of
at 8 right now,
operating
right?
income.
I was gonna say more like 10, but we were a ways away from it.
Yeah,
A big partner in this building is the state of Illinois, and they're not a very reliable payer.
right,
So
exactly.
you can't assume that they're getting
Yeah,
crisp
things are gonna
payments.
change all around.
You have to have a cushion
Right.
for delayed payments.
Yeah.
But although this is, I'm gonna say this kind of, it's a little bit premature because we're not talking about the financial model today. Another thing I think that I always keep in mind is that Valley High is paying the county a certain amount of money. I know you know that number.
$500,000.
So we're not, the taxpayers are not supporting Valley High. Valley High, I argue, although I know Peter will probably say, no, this is not, he's not gonna say it. Valley High is paying the county money. So,
Well,
in the
actually, it's
future-
just the shared cost of the services that
Well-
I receives. Isn't that a
You
better
know,
way?
that's
to-
what the argument I'm sure was made when that $500,000 was charged.
They
a
did
charge
not
back.
get up to 36 million or whatever that amount was 10 years ago.
Right, so I mean, it's not, the coverage is not today, but in the future years, which I may not be here for, there's always, the taxpayers originally did say they wanted to fund the mission. And so I think that's always an option, to go back and look at letting the letting the taxpayers fulfill what they said they wanted to do. So, but for now, we are very strong. We're very strong
We're
financially.
probably the only home
That is this strong, yes, for
that is
sure
in
we
the
are.
position we're in.
Concur,
We are,
yeah.
yes,
So it's an interesting problem to have.
yes.
You know, I walked with Tom Burrows this morning, and as you guys are gonna see in a few minutes, when you start to walk out in the unit, you're like, this is so much more welcoming, and then you look down the hallway. I told him, I said, you know, I've walked these halls for 15 years, and now I'm depressed. Because you see this new, bright, and and like, oh,
No, Tom.
we've got to change that, we've got to change, but no, I think being realistic, we still want to keep maintaining the building. We want to make sure that, you know, the walls, the floors, all of that stuff looks good and presents itself well. So we have projects yet that go out probably forever. You know, every year, we're going to take care of this, take care of that, but the big stuff, this is it right here. I'm not doing another one of these
For a while.
for a while.
I always say that.
Yeah, I tease Tom Burrows a lot, and he and I had talked way back in the beginning that, you know, of having a construction manager, and we were like, it was $500,000. We're like, forget it, we'll save the money, we'll just manage it ourselves, and we'll have weekly meetings and yada yada. So I was teasing him the other day, what are you doing with your $250?
Right?
Yeah, he laughed at me and he said he gets 3. So I don't know, but I digress. So that's kind of where we're at with those the financial picture. So when we meet with Finance and Audit tomorrow,
Yes.
what do you want the message to come? How do you want that message
Well,
to
I mean,
convey?
part of it, the answer, I thought the fast answer, and I was reticent to give it last month, was that we've been paying, the county really have been paying as they go. So we're not gonna see a big drop.
No, we
Sure
won't.
not, we're
No,
gonna,
we won't.
it's going to be a small in comparison to our fund balance drop.
Yeah, every month we get a bill, every month we pay the bill.
And that the loss, I don't think it was clear last month when we did the art discussion, Baker Tilly, that it wasn't real lost money.
No, it was not.
Right. Shortly afterwards, I think, probably Peter educated me as to it wasn't a real drop. But,
So I think you're on the money, and
Yes.
maybe you can kick that off tomorrow, but this is what we wanted to talk about. I mean, number
Right.
one, the 1.6 isn't real money, so that was question one. This gets answered on this page.
right,
Number two, that 2.4 isn't gonna go down substantially more because of the construction and all the F&E is already in there.
It's all in.
and I don't think people know, and in general, I don't think the board knows in general, how well the Medicaid rate is paying right now. And that we don't need to be worried about, we're not talking about case mix at this moment, we will in the future, but Medicaid isn't going to be a big drop, because that has been a discussion. When we formed the Valley High Committee a year and a half ago, 2 years
Well, it's
ago.
more than that.
So, all right, we are in almost at the end of our second year here. That was the big discussion, should we take more Medicaid patients, and like, well, we could lose money. At this moment, we're not losing money.
Well, yeah, that was because
Yes.
of the change in the rate.
Right,
that came up
yes,
before.
but also
So-
that's not a forever thing,
And
so,
we talked about, this would be a good time to take advantage of that, and we do have to be prudent, and I really enjoyed the meeting we had where Scott was there, and we just threw out numbers for the different case mix to see what the bottom line was. You know.
right, we haven't
So
done
when
that,
we-
yeah.
So when we have that discussion, it'll be good for us to do that again for our own, just,
From a timing standpoint, though, I think we have to kind of give Scott a little bit of direction as to separate or all together, because that impacts how the model works. And I think maybe we can
well,
make,
and I'm sure he could do that 2 ways as well.
well, hell, he kind of made it sound like he would prefer it to all be one.
Oh, okay, okay.
The complexity of how that all comes together, but I think
That might not be.
you and I will talk a little bit
The
about
tool
it.
also has been, for months, we've been talking about when will the tool be ready.
Some of it's my fault. Some of it's I mean, he's waiting for some numbers from me, and I'm still trying to refine the numbers. And I actually have a rate survey that I'm having the team do right now.
Okay.
Because I think it also matters as to what is the market rate for a room in a memory care unit. So we can kind of set that as part of the discussion as well. I mean, if talking the difference of, $200-300 between what the market is for a private pay room and what the Medicaid rate is. It kind of makes it a no-brainer conversation.
I think your, finance committee is a pretty easy going committee, they're reasonable people. But the other thing too that kind of, makes me rest a little assured is you have no deferred maintenance, really. Once, your memory care is built out, you don't have a lot of big ticket items, and then your future is,
We have a few,
none of you haven't let things go, there is no deferred maintenance that has been put aside.
yeah, nothing's deferred, there are things planned, there's a parking lot redo, things like that, but they're all baked into the model.
Right, so, I mean, it's something to make sure everybody knows too,
Okay.
that you don't have any big surprises in the horizon either.
Okay.
You're stable.
Yeah,
Well, which is important, don't you think?
It is important, yeah, and then
Yeah,
that's
for-
just
I
a
mean,
reassurance.
'cause
Those
that
are,
would be a million-dollar question.
it is.
If I go back, I think point one, 1.6 isn't real money. Point two, the 22.4 million isn't gonna go down significantly more. The wild card is the third point, and that is, looking forward, how much does the finance committee wanna hear tomorrow about things? You could say, we're gonna start looking at the modeling
The mix, yeah.
next month, the mix, not the modeling, but we're
Yeah.
gonna start looking at the mix, and you can dip your toe into the inverted private pay Medicaid rate, but I know you'll talk a long time but
no, I
I
try to
don't think
keep
that's
that.
really where they wanna go tomorrow.
Yeah, and I don't know that I want to go down the road of the inverted, because that might cause more conversation about, well, then maybe we should be all in,
Right.
and that could be,
So maybe just say that we're gonna,
Yeah, I think just for now,
Yeah, just
how
stay-
we look right now.
yeah,
And.
Stay way up.
And here's what we're doing, and,
Yeah,
explain what that number means, because when I hear, what's in that does make a difference.
okay,
Although I'd also say, so this model that we've been looking to have developed, if it's not gonna be ready next month, like, don't promise, don't like
well,
imply
I'm not
it'll be
going
ready
to
next
imply
month.
that it's going to be ready.
Right.
we gotta get we've a completely new
Yes.
wage schedule since the last thing was done. We got new rates,
Yeah,
it's, nope.
It's not, it won't be ready by next month, but that, you and I will have
Okay.
some level of comfort with some numbers.
Okay,
As soon as I can get a little bit more comfortable myself, I'll share that with you.
okay.
But, okay, I think I know what needs to be done tomorrow, I'll be there. I'll let you take the lead, and then I'll be there to fill in anything you want.
Do you want us to send this out this afternoon?
Yes, yeah,
Finance
I think the finance committee would like to look at it, and then they can think about it, come ready for questions.
Thank you.
I gotta send it to her yet.
Well, she's, okay.
The only
Is
person
it
I
the same,
sent,
is it the same one you sent me?
yeah,
All right.
the only person I sent it to is you. So, all right, well then, the last thing I have to go over is just where we're at with the memory care unit as a whole,
Yeah, so
project-wise.
I think we'll do our walking tour. Did you want to say anything before the walking tour? But I think we'll do the walking tour after adjournment.
Let me just give you a quick update on what's next, what to expect, and then we'll do the tour.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a job description that we created for the unit director, which I've sent over to HR. We need to get scored. What that basically means is they put it into a pay class that tells us what the range is, and we'll get that advertised. We've already started looking at some light programming development. We don't want to get too far down the road until the unit director is brought on, although we have some interest already. So even before we've put out for the position, we have a growing waiting list for the unit itself. That doesn't mean that everybody that's on that list will qualify based on the criteria, but at least we know that on day one, we already have enough people to populate the staff. So that's the goal, is we got to get to the right number of residents for the first, obviously you're not going to move, let's just say the number's 10. You're not going to move 10 people in on day one. You'll move it in on day 1, 2, and 3, but that supports your staff, your first level of staffing, and then you stagger out to your next line. It's like a stair step. So we're working on pulling all of that together. Construction-wise, you'll see most of the demo work is done. Some of the wall coverings are up, finishes are done, up, casework and millwork is going in. We're really pretty much on target. The goal here is to finish substantial completion by October, November. Originally, it was going to be November, December. We're a little bit ahead of that now. And then occupancy first part of the year, so probably right after the new year, look to fill. The new unit director, when they get hired on, if they already have the certified trainer, the certification to be the train the trainer kind of thing, then they're good to go. Otherwise, order of business number one is they have to be sent to go get that training, and then they'll kind of spearhead a small working group, task force, whatever you want to call it, of staff from in here to develop the programming. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're taking stuff that I've already got, and we're just going to work through it. But once they get that done, then we'll recruit and hire for the staff for that unit. There'll be a nurse, a couple CNAs, an activity aide that will add to the staff. That resolution with all of the breakdown of the positions will come before you guys next month. And then we're off to the races at that point. So most of the work, like I said, is still right on schedule. Wednesday of next week, this is the last point I wanted to make. Wednesday of next week, Tom Burrows and I are going to sit down and not redo the budget, but review the budget and see where we're at. The last time we did this, we were still under budget. Now, there's been a couple things that have come up where we've added them on or made some changes, but I still think we're budget-wise looking good, but now we can add in the total cost of the FF&E, some more knowns that we've got, and we can get a feel for where we're at in that contingent account that we've set aside. So I'll be able to give you guys a little bit better picture as far as budget progress on this project at the next meeting. Any questions, thoughts, feelings?
Are we doing also next month the whole budget discussion for the year, or is that in August? No, it is August. It's next month. August is when we're going to have our big budget discussion, right? Yeah.
I think it comes up in August, right? Or is it September?
It has to be August, probably.
We gotta do it before Labor Day.
Okay, then.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, because your money doesn't compete with everybody else, but I can't wait till into September.
Well, my budget's done.
Well, let's do it next month.
Okay. Yep.
Then we can take the August off.
Right.
No, but it'll be,
Yeah, no, mine's done, so we're prepared.
I mean, we gotta meet with Carrie, but,
Yeah, but as far as me meeting with my team and doing the revenue budget, we're good. So I guess I got to get my supplementals in order, so we can talk a little bit about that. But otherwise, I think we'd be in good shape to have a conversation next month.
around Tuesday the 6th.
Okay, my team's got 14 days to get on Carrie's calendar. Is she ready to start meeting with departments all?
Yeah, but she's out next week, but other than that, yeah.
Okay, no problem. Maybe that last week of July, we can get together the week before. That'll give us a little bit of time to noodle some.
She did ROE yesterday.
Okay, so she's already in the month.
Mark Crooks is in.
Alright, so for next month, our future topics, we actually are gonna have a pretty full meeting then with all of these discussions.
Yeah.
So be ready. Sometimes we feel a little lean here, but next month is a big business. Any other future topics you wanna add for our big meeting next month? Okay, alright, then we will we don't have executive session, we will look for an adjournment, and then after the adjournment, we'll do our walking tour.
I
And
think we should just
you wanted to
say
pause?
the meeting will adjourn upon conclusion of our tour,
Yeah,
so we're not illegally walking.
I think so too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right, I
that
mean,
makes
it's
sense.
10, 11,
Okay, so we are gonna pause then? Pause the,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about the video component of that, but.
right, yes, they can't watch us walk.
Doesn't have
But
to
if
stay
they were
there.
here, if we had, imagine if you had a person here, he or
Oh.
she would be able, they need to be able to go with us.
They do, yes, I agree. Thank you for keeping us in order. Okay, well then, we're gonna go on our tour.
And then our programming will put it right on top. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for the tour. It was very beautiful. I'm sure our residents will be feeling right at home. A motion for adjournment,
Motion to adjourn.
all right, and seconded by Mike.